Hey, welcome to another episode of the Venture YA podcast. I am missing my co-host today, Rachel.
Right here.
But I do have our worship pastor, director, personnel, jack of all trades, creative, just all around good guy, David Diaz here. My name is
Hello.
Morgan. If I haven't met you yet, I'm the young adults pastor here at Venture Church. And every week we have different guests come on and we talk about all sorts of different topics. You can go back and watch all of our Venture YA podcasts on our Venture app or on YouTube. You can go check all those out. I think we're up to like episode 20 or something. Got a lot of these.
It's been 6 months.
It's crazy how they stack up quick. Anyways, David, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Where'd you grow up? Well, tell us about what you do and what you do on the side and all that kind of stuff.
I am Latino, so there's that.
It's important.
So I am
It's important.
a quarter Colombian, a quarter Spanish, and half Puerto Rican.
If you had to eat one culture's food for the rest of your life, would it be
It'd be Puerto Rican food.
Puerto Rican? Okay.
It's probably the food I've eaten the least, which is probably why.
Oh, okay.
But it's incredible.
Mm.
So the Jimenez family could attest. We talk about it.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah. I was born in Florida. I didn't travel a lot, but I moved a lot. I went to like 7 different elementary schools, so that's interesting. But yeah, moved a lot. Ended up here. I've lived in Washington for like 12 plus years, though. So I've been here at Venture a little over 4 years, and I oversee our worship ministry and do some other things, and going to school full time.
Come on.
School's hard, but it is needed.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. David, you kill it as the worship pastor here, and so we're really thankful for you. But today, what we're talking about, I wanted David to hop on with me, is because we're talking about, it's the beginning of the school year. People are starting to go back to college. They're starting to sit in classes. They're getting into new rhythms of their life, new routines in their life. And yeah, it's a different season, but kind of, I feel like the world runs more off of the school calendar than it even does, your basic January to December type feel. And so, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, what are some things that we can do as young adults? What are some things that you've done? What are some things that have been important to you that help you prepare to get your mind, your body, just in the right space to be able to go into the year seeking success in everything that you do? And I think a lot of times we put an emphasis maybe on one thing with the beginning of school, especially for those people in school, with what do I need to do to be academically successful. But I really think there's so much more that we can do and take the time to evaluate on what we're doing and what we can do to change at the beginning of a time like this, where it's a transitional season. We're getting ready for the new year. What are some things that you've done to really like set yourself up for success at the beginning of the year like this?
Well, I think I've had to look at it, and it's really hard, but I've had to not look at my life as like the 4 seasons or the school year versus summer. I need habits, I need routine, and so I don't sleep in the summer as opposed to during the school year. Like that's, well, I mean, I can't work full time, so
Right.
can't really do that.
Small.
But I don't look at it as like I get to slack off or I get to like have a break. I just think the day-to-day or the activities or my schedule might look different. But I think consistency is everything. One of my mentors, I was explaining to him how I'm doing and what my life looks like. And he was like, he asked me if it was okay for him to challenge me with something. And so I think it's super good to have people in your life that challenge you, that push you.
Yeah.
But he was like, he recommended that I consider setting a goal of just having consistency over time in everything, in my work ethic, in my relationship with Jesus, in the way that I love my family, in the way that I love friends, like whatever it is that I choose and however much time I give to something or, whatever, the way I'm managing my finances, let it be consistent over time. I just think that when you have consistency, you get clarity and results. And so I think that leads to self-awareness.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
I'm a big believer in that too. I think, one of the hardest things is I think sometimes it's easy to set goals. The hardest part is to really pursue them and follow through and execute them. One of the things that I do at the beginning of every year, and actually I do it twice a year, once in December and then once in August. So I just came out of a little vacation, took some time away to really focus on setting goals for myself. And I do that. It was something that Pastor Brandon taught years and years and years ago, like literally a decade ago. That's weird to say, but literally a decade ago, he taught me how to set goals for multiple different areas of your life. And if you don't have really like a goal setting process that you do, I think it's one of the best ways to really stretch yourself for the next year, to really like evaluate. And that's probably part of the process that we fail to do the most, is just evaluate where we're at and where we want to be, by the end of the year. And one of the best ways to do that is to navigate like, all right, what are some areas of growth that I need to have? And what are some practical, measurable goals that I can set up in my life to get to that place? And I think when you have kind of created that type of structure and that type of goal setting for yourself, it gives you the ability to work consistency into your life, like you're talking
absolutely.
about. Like when you have something that you're aiming for, to be able to take that goal and to say, all right, what does it look like for me this year to be able to accomplish that thing? Well, it's going to look like 3 times a week I'm working out to get to that ultimate goal that I have at the end of the year, to lose 30 pounds or whatever, whatever that is. But, we can do that in so many areas of our life, and setting up goals for ourselves, I think, is one thing that I've done at the beginning of every year that really just helps me to not just look at where I am and how I'm entering the year, but it gives me eyes for the future on who I want to become by the end of the year. And to be able to set that up and then to build the consistency into my life through that lens, I think has been really helpful for me.
Something that is along the same lines of that, something that I have worked into, something I do every year, is every year I evaluate where I want to be in the long term. When I set my goals for a year, when I set my goals for a season, I have the long game in mind. And so, like, I want to own a house. Well, what do I have to do now at 23 to do that? And with this market, it's crazy, right? And so in everything, I have to do that. And I think it's all about planning. And I think whether it's a fitness goal or whether there's always a reason. And so if I have a fitness goal, it's because long term I want to be healthy and I want to be a dad that can run around with my kids. Like, that's because that's one of my long-term goals. It's something that I'm working towards.
And you will run as a dad. You will chase them constantly through the house. Yeah, that will happen. I can guarantee.
Sounds stressful. Oh, man. But I think it's the goal setting. I think it's anticipating the future. And I think it's setting measurable, realistic things. And I think that's, people lose sight of their goals or their resolutions or whatever you want to call it. People lose sight because they're just hard. They're really lofty. And I think it's really good to swing for the fences. But I also think setting reasonable expectations for yourself is key. And I think, like you said, I think a big thing is self-awareness. So
I love what you say there about setting reasonable expectations. I've heard it said before that you want to set goals that are out of reach but not out of touch. Right? Like they're going to stretch you. You're going to have to stretch, and they're beyond what you can get to just by reaching out your hand. But they're not quite out of touch. Like you can get there if you put the emphasis into it, if you try for it. And I think that's, you talk about what I think is a really intimidating thing for young adults to think about. The future. And not just like a year, but like you're talking like 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Yeah. What do I want to do this year? You're taking what I'm talking about on a 1-year scale and you're making that more of like a long-term scale. What can I do this year to get to where I want to be in 5 years? I want to own a house in 5 years. What do I need to do this year to do that? And so you can easily see, like, if you break down goals like that, what you're doing is you're creating structure for yourself. You're creating small goals, reachable, attainable goals that you can take to get yourself to those long-term things that you desire for your life.
I call them, I've switched my, verbiage from, I don't set goals, I set checkpoints for myself.
That's good.
And I think it gives me I know them, my mentors know them, my girlfriend knows them, but it just gives me checkpoints that I can keep myself accountable to, and that people around me can keep me accountable to. Yeah. And I don't know, I love seeing progress. I don't know. I'm totally a hands-on. I want to see progress. I want to know I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think on the flip side, I know so many people that just don't have that passion. Like just don't have that, maybe not passion, but they're just like, I need to finish school or I need to do this. And thinking 2 years ahead, 5 years ahead is like unimaginable. I think that you can do this even if you're that kind of a person. I think for me, for a long time, my thing was I needed to wake up to my first alarm. And that's still super challenging.
Simple, yeah.
But that's like day to day, I was like, I feel like I can get nothing done.
You were
I'm not being productive.
guy, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I still am, low key. But
Mm.
there's something to be said about like, okay, for a month, I'm going to wake up to my first alarm, and that's the first victory, the first success of my day. And I go into the rest of my day knowing I actually got something done, knowing I had my victory for the day. And I don't know. Yeah.
That's good. Well, and I love the conversation of goal setting as a way to set yourself up for success, because when you're talking about like what it looks like to have success or to do well in a year, how do you really measure that if you haven't set anything for you to become?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And so we're taking a conversation that all of us would say, like, we all want to be better by the end of the year. We all want to do things to grow. All of us, I think anyone watching this podcast would say, like, I aspire to be better or in a better position or further along in my life by the end of the year. But unless we're really sitting down and praying and thinking about who is that person that I want to become? What does success even look like?
Yeah.
How are we ever going to get there?
Yeah.
One of the things that I think I struggled with early on, and I know that many people don't set goals for themselves because they're afraid of this happening, is the discouragement that can come with not accomplishing the goals you set out.
Yeah.
What would you say to a person who is maybe like afraid or timid of really setting some goals for themselves, because they don't want to fail or come short or not be able to come through with what they set out to do? What would you just say to encourage somebody?
A couple of thoughts. I don't know how encouraging this is going to be as much as it is challenging, but I think that a lot of that is something in the last 2 years that has really just like rung strong in my mind and my heart, has been not who I want to be known as, because I think then we put someone else's like name or their picture, or their life story on it, but what I want to be known for. And I think that's what for me drives me. And so I think that maybe picturing these long-term, like, this is what I want my life to look like, maybe just bring it down to the foundation of like, this is what I want to be known for. And that's your morals. That's your values. That's not, I need to have these things and it's going to cost me this much money or this much time or this education and this degree or whatever. That's totally a personal shaping thing. And I think it starts with your relationship with Jesus. I think that when we're in tune to the Holy Spirit, when we're close to the Lord, He gives us a vision for our life. And all of a sudden, we're not comparing ourselves to the world or social media or whatever. We're seeing ourselves the way that the Lord sees us. And I think that's critical. And not to hyper spiritualize it, but I think that's huge. I think that's where it starts, honestly.
That's good. You bring up a really great thought in line with everything that we're talking about. But ultimately, if we're not asking ourselves the question, what does God desire for my life? When we're having those conversations of who do I want to become? What do I want to be known for? We're really missing the bigger picture of what we were created to do and who God desires for us to be and what He desires for us to do, which really should be the foundation of everything that we build off of and everything that we go through. What are some things that you've done in your spiritual life, in your spiritual journey with Christ to really, like, at the beginning of the year come back? What are some foundational things that you've set up in your life to make sure that you really keep Him at the center of all your conversations and all your planning and all your preparation as you go into the year?
Yeah, I think in the day-to-day, it's legitimately spending time with God. And I fully recognize I myself have been in seasons where I might look at my Bible once, didn't even read it, and then I didn't pray daily. But it seriously makes a difference. And that's not, it just does. And if you feel like it doesn't, I challenge you to do it for a couple of weeks and see how your life is transformed. And I think one of the things that, for me personally, is a big deal is I have to commit to my spiritual disciplines. And for me, that goes beyond praying or reading my Bible. It means fasting. It means really challenging myself to ask the Lord to speak to me and to wait. And that's, I think, the hardest part is the waiting. And I think that as we pray, I think we're waiting. And as we fast, we're waiting. And as we read our Bibles, we're waiting. But I think it's honestly putting in the time. I think something that I've learned the hard way has been, how do I not just put in the time, but how do I give Jesus or how do I give God my first? And I feel like the church talks about the principle of giving and that first fruit. And in my life, the Lord has challenged me to give him the first fruit, not only in my finances, which is what's most talked about, I feel like, but honestly, in everything that I am. So how do I give him the first moments of when I wake up on a daily basis? How do I give him the first part of my spirit, the first part of my heart, the first part of my thoughts? And so as much as the question, I feel like, is so longer term, it's seen as a longer term question, I think that the impact is in the day to day. And I think that's what it takes for me. It's not like sure, annually I set goals and I ask the Lord to speak into that and to reveal what he has for me. But I think that doesn't come without the day-to-day investment. Yeah. So
true. One of the things that I've found myself doing, I've become like a very like structured goal setter. So, and I think that's predominantly because that's how I was really taught to do it. But, in the spiritual category of my life, so I set goals for 7 different areas of my life, and my spiritual life is one of them. And so I feel like every year I would write, 30 minutes in scripture a day, and that was just like, for every year, that was just something that kind of rolled over. And I began to realize, that's like the minimum of what I should be doing, right? Like that's like, and maybe 30 minutes isn't the minimum for somebody watching this. Maybe it's 5 minutes, or maybe it's 10, whatever it is. Maybe it's, I read a couple scriptures, whatever that minimum is. That's like just something that like I naturally should be doing. But if I really want to like grow myself beyond that, I've got to start doing things that go beyond just what I am doing every single day. So one of the things that I've really been challenged with, that somebody challenged me with, is instead of putting those as my goals every year, read the Bible 30 minutes a day, whatever. Instead of making that a goal, every year I create a new kind of like spiritual practice to put into my life that helps me connect with God on a different way than maybe I have the year before. So for instance, one year, one of the things that I did, the goal that I had was that I never say, I will be praying for you, without praying for that person before I get off the phone or before I leave them. And so it was a practice for me to not just say that I'm going to be praying for you, but to actually start by praying for them in the present and then continue to pray for them after I leave them. One of them was that I would pause when taking walks or out in the woods or just in the day-to-day, that I would try to pause once a day and just thank God for whatever was around me that day. So like just weird little things like that just help me to take a portion of my day and focus it in and add him into a different part of what I was doing in any moment of my day. So adding different kind of creative things to your rhythms of your life. I was talking with one student who said, before I go into any class that I go to, I stopped at the door of my class and I said a very short, like 1-line prayer before I walked into every class that I went into. So for a student, you have the rhythm and the routine of going to class every day. Adding something into that routine before you go into that thing that helps you insert Christ into the center of your life is an easy way to implement what you're doing already, adding in something to really enhance your relationship with God. There's so many different things that we can do, right? There's so many different things that we can do to set ourselves up at the beginning of the year to grow, to take that step of growth in our life. And I just want to challenge you, if you find yourself watching this, you're getting ready for the year, whether you're working, you're a parent, you're going to school, you're in college, whatever that looks like for you, I really challenge you to, first of all, evaluate who you are right now. and to look for areas of your life that you really want to stretch yourself in, that you want to grow yourself in. And maybe that doesn't look like setting up goals for yourself like maybe I do or you do, but maybe it just looks like evaluating yourself and challenging yourself to grow in a certain way, to become not just the person that you are right now, but the person that you want to become as the year continues. And as you do that, I just challenge you to make it a practical rhythm in your life, to make it a consistent, just like you were talking about, to grow in consistency with some of these things that we desire to become. And I guarantee you that if you take small things that you practice regularly and consistently, you will find that at the end of this year, if you are diligent about praying, evaluating, and then setting practical goals for yourself that aren't out of reach, but that are out of touch, that you will become a better, more successful person by the end of the year in whatever area of your life you set that out to be. And so we want to thank you for watching this week's episode of our Venture Y podcast. Again, you can download our Venture app. You can go under our Young Adults Ministry, and you can find all of our Young Adults podcasts under those tabs. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search Our Venture Church and look for our Venture YA podcast links there. We love you guys. We're praying for you. Feel free to message us, email us with any prayer requests or needs that you have. We love you, and we'll see you next week.